Hi there, and welcome back to www. Wait till a taxidermy man sees what I brung him.com. I told you dudes a long time ago that this was going to be a journey. Well, this journey has hit sort of an oasis. And that oasis is this guy sitting right next to me, and he's the one, the only Mr. A.J. Boner.
Hi, Dennis.
Damn glad to see you.
It's great to see you here. It's nice to have you here.
Yeah.
Gee whiz. I'm glad that I'm now going to be in the basement.
In the basement.
Sure.
You're the first person, although we're not in the basement.
Right.
You're the first person who's been invited into the basement.
Oh, how nice.
At a remote location.
I'm flattered.
I never thought that this thing, I always wanted this episode to happen, and I had my doubts that it was, but now that's happening, it's almost surreal. So I'm going to kind of shut up, and we're just going to get to the meat and potatoes. The one rule we have on this episode, on this podcast, is no bullshit. So I know I don't have to tell you that. I'm telling it just for my gratification.
Okay, fair enough.
Okay, here's the deal. You guys have listened to me talk about AJ for the last 2 years. We've done 60 episodes, and probably not an episode goes by that I don't mention the guy. So we're going to just get into it. Dude, you talk about the magic trick, about finding it, about getting it, how easy it is to get. When did you get it?
Well, it was the spring of 1964. That's a lot. It's almost 50 years ago, isn't it? It was spring of 1964. I was on the freshman golf team at the time. I'd graduated in 61 from high school, went to Penn State. 63, I graduated from their 2-year turf management program and worked as an assistant superintendent throughout 63 throughout 60 into 64. The spring of 64, I was lucky enough to get a golf scholarship to Kent State University. And I left the business of turf management. My older brother was a superintendent for his whole career and actually was at Canterbury Golf Club in Shaker Heights, Ohio, where they've had quite a few major championships. And he was there for 49 years and was a brilliant superintendent. And in 2009 was the United States Golf Association Green Section Man of the Year.
Wow.
So he was a brilliant superintendent, and he's retired now down to Florida at the Villages.
Okay.
So he's got 12 golf courses, I think, that he plays all the time now. And he's having a great time. But one of the great people on this planet. And he was always my hero, and he went off to do this. And we were both raised by parents who were very no BS kind of parents. My mother was a school teacher, and my dad was a machinist who knew how to make anything out of any material. And tools were his whole life. He knew about tools and how to use them, and he taught my brother and me all about tools. And I remember the one thing he always told me was, son, you don't pound nails with a screwdriver. And of course, at the time, I thought it was the dumbest thing I ever heard, but it turns out to be the most brilliant, simple way to say everything there is to say about tools. Every tool is designed to be used in a very specific way. If you don't use it that way, it doesn't matter. You're not going to get very good at using that tool if you don't use it the way it's made. Well, I was on the freshman golf team. In those days, freshmen couldn't play on the varsity, so I'd play practice rounds with my fellow freshmen on the golf team, and we were playing a little money match, and I think on the 17th hole, I won $1 off this guy, and he was all ticked off. So we get to the 18th tee, and up to this point in my golf career, I've been playing at this time about 12 years, and I had listened and tried every golf swing notion that everybody told me. It's about the golf swing. It's about the golf swing, son. You got to you get the golf swing. There's a golf swing. If you learn to do that perfect, you'll hit perfect shots. Okay, that's the way it is. That's the truth. That's where I'll go. And I worked my butt off. I had all kind of the hip moving and the L's, and I was shoulder turning and doing all, and I was working I said, I'm going to work harder at the swing than anybody in the world because I want to be a great player.
You know, back in our generation, that was the Hogan model.
Yep.
And we all
swing.
figured we could do that.
Sure, there's a swing. Learn to do it perfectly. Hit perfect shots. And we walk up onto this 18th tee, and we had the tee markers back then were just 4x4s that were cut into 4x4 cubes and painted blue and with a spike in it. And that was a tee marker. It was simple. Didn't cost a lot of money. And this guy walked up to the tee all ticked off because he'd lost his dollar, and throws his bag down, grabs his driver, and he takes his driver out and swings like he's going to nail that wooden tee marker. He didn't hit it, but I thought, holy shit. If I had to hit that wooden tee marker, I wouldn't need a wooden tee marker swing. I could just beat the snot out of that thing and nothing. I mean, I could hit it all day. Not only that, but since it was a flat surface, I could flush it every time with my driver, flush flat, 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 flat. And I wouldn't have to worry about where my shoulders were, my hips, or my knees. It was just a hammering thing that I could beat the crap out of that thing with. And then I teed the ball up about 5 inches from the tee marker, and I put the club down, and I went into my dance step golf swing. Then I walked over to the tee marker, and there was no dance step. There was no golf swing. There was just beat the snot out of the backside of that wooden thing. I stepped back to my golf ball, went into my golf swing thing. And I thought, wait a minute. Where in the 5 inches between the cube and the ball did it transition from not needing a golf swing to needing a golf swing? Because I didn't need a swing to hit the cube. I could beat it all day, flush. I walked back to the ball. All of a sudden, I got to have a golf swing to make it work. So then I did a little mind experiment. And I had always been a big Albert Einstein fan. I read a lot when I was young growing up about Einstein and the way he thought about things, and was an amazing problem solver.
The dudes and dudettes know that.
Oh, okay. Well, he was.
That's cool, though.
But he was one of my heroes, and the way he thought about things and figured stuff out that was a little different than the rest of the world did. But it was sound. It was a sound way of thinking. And one of the things he used to do was a thing he used to call mind experiments. In his head, he would imagine something and continue to knowing what the rules are, how that mind experiment would go. So I imagined there was a golf ball inside the cube, and that the back of the golf ball was right up against the back of the cube.
Right.
And I said, do I need a swing now? No, I'm just going to hit the cube. And I began in my mind removing real thin pieces of wood off the back of this, revealing a little golf ball sticking out. And the part of the ball started to stick out. I said, do I need a swing now? No, I don't need a swing now. I can just beat on that thing and flatten it against the flat side of the cube, and the ball would flatten and become part of the flat side of the cube when I hit it. Yeah. And I kept removing pieces of the thing in my mind. And when does it transfer to needing a golf swing?
Well, when?
It didn't. It never did.
I know.
And so I thought, well, if I have half the ball sticking out the backside, I don't need a golf swing to flatten it into the... Then why do I need it when the rest of the thing's gone? So I knew then that the model, quote, there's a golf swing, if you learn to do it perfectly, you hit perfect shots, was flawed as a concept. And that's when I began to... I actually went back to my dorm room at the time, and my laundry bag was full of dirty clothes anyway, so I took my laundry bag and I cinched it up, and we had built-in cabinets, you know, for the drawers on our dresser, and they were built into the wall, so I hung the string in the top drawer and slammed it shut, so this is now sitting there in my room, and I got my 2-iron in the room back there at the dorm, and I started beating on this laundry bag full of my dirty clothes, which I never did a very good job of laundry, so there was always full, right? Yeah.
You weren't living alone.
Right. So I was just smashing this thing, and whomp, 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 whomp. And it felt so good to just hit that thing. Boom, boom. And that was my first go with an impact bag. Mm-hmm. And then I was playing, freshman, we competed a couple times, played a couple other universities where they had their freshman teams and so on. And I started to play really well that year, and I played really, really well the following year on my sophomore year, and it was the first year that I really broke 70 and shot some scores that were pretty low, and I shot 65 a few times, and actually then I remember I'd had 65 about 3 or 4 times, and I was on the 18th hole at the university course there, and I had a putt about that long for 64 on the last hole, and I never touched the cup. The ball went left and never went in, and I was all ticked off, and I walked in the clubhouse. What are you so mad about? What'd you shoot? 65. Jeez. Oh, excuse me. Yeah, but I missed it. I don't want to hear about it. That's when I realized people don't really care what happened to you. Just keep it shut. They don't care. shoot 65 and missed a little putt. And I have a really dear friend now named Alan Ogilvie, who's, I think Alan's 81 or so now, and he was the head professional for a very long time at Glen Abbey up in Toronto.
I played there last year.
Oh, cool. Yeah, yeah. And I asked him what the lowest score he ever had was, and he said, well, I shot 60 once. And I three-putted 18 from 15 feet. So no matter how low you go, you can always say, but if I'd two-putted, I shot 59. Nope, didn't get there. You're not going to have many chances to shoot 59 again, I don't suppose. But so anyway, this whole business of taking the stick and hitting the ball with the stick became everything. There was no golf swing to me anymore. There was no golf swing.
So that's when you got it.
Right.
And what it is the fact that there is no swing.
There's no golf swing that's causative as a causative agent. Now, a causative agent is a phrase that we use in turfgrass management in plant pathology. When you have a disease of plant pathology, there's a causative agent, a fungus, a bacterium, whatever it is, there's a causative agent. And if you have a disease, there's a very common disease in turfgrass called dollar spot on a putting green. It's about a silver dollar-sized brown patch that's dead grass. It's caused by a fungus called Sclerotinia homoeocarpa. You remember that?
I didn't know that.
Yeah. It's called Sclerotinia dollar spot. And if you...
You dudes thought I was exaggerating. Go ahead.
Well, you see, we had a plant pathology professor at Penn State named Dr. Houston B. Couch.
Yeah.
And he wrote the definitive book on diseases of turfgrass that everybody used in universities and research. I mean, this was the definitive book on... Well, he was our teacher. He was our professor of turfgrass diseases. And we would have a quiz every week of the new diseases that we'd learned from Monday till Friday. And we had to learn to identify the disease from a lesion on the leaf.
Right.
And then what we would do then is we would have to name the causative agent, what the organism was that caused it. And it was a Latin genus and species, Sclerotinia homoeocarpa, for instance, on this one. And then we had to do the common name, and then we had to do the treatment.
Right.
If any part of our answer was misspelled, the whole thing was wrong. So, I mean, this is rigorous stuff. You know, you don't think about it being that tough, but it really was, and I passed. Anyway,
my guy was Dr. John Fay. He was a Jesuit at St. Joe's Prep. I took my first biology test
There you
from
go.
him, and he graded on spelling.
Yes, there
I
you
think
go.
my score on the test was in the negative numbers, and he actually brought me up in front of the class because I misspelled my name. True story. I don't know what the hell got into me, but I misspelled my name. And Dr. John Fay, he was really a cool dude.
Yes.
I'll show you how cool. We were sophomore year at St. Joe's Prep. He, in the springtime, he let us smoke cigarettes in class.
Get out.
I swear to God.
Oh, my Lord, have mercy.
He must have been having a bad day. He brought me up in front of the class and asked me. I thought it was a pop quiz.
Yeah.
Hey, Hey, Mr. Dude, how do you spell your last name? And I spelled it for him. He said, well, yeah, try to do that on a test.
D-E-W-D.
Yeah, right. Okay, we're going to take a break. Great story to do.